Ryan Wilson's got his latest mock draft on CBSSports.com, and Will Anderson, as of right now, third overall to the Seahawks. In fact, Ardo's got 3 edge guys going to the top 7, including Tyree Wilson and Myles Murphy. In total, he's got 6 edge rushers going in the first round. All right, taking a look at those edge rankings, there is the aforementioned Anderson, Wilson, and Murphy. Interesting to note, we're going to talk about number 5 there from LSU, B.J. Ojulari. Got a bone to pick with Arda. Not really a bone to pick, just more of a question about the rankings in his latest mock. You see there, of course, Nolan Smith. Everybody knows him from Georgia there, coming in at number 6. All right, back here with our guy, Ryan Wilson and Lige Douzable. So, Ryan, when we take a look at your prospect rankings, let's start with number 1. Will Anderson Jr. from Alabama, which this time last year could have been in the conversation for number 1 overall. What are your thoughts on Will and maybe what has changed from year to year?
Absolutely nothing. And the thing about Will Anderson is he hasn't been as dominant this year as he was last year. But hey, that's what happens when you face double teams, play in and play out. But this guy tries on every single play with 100% effort, and you see what he can do in terms of changing a game with one single play. And the thing about Will Anderson that's so great, and Rick Spielman talked about this on the old new Pick Six draft the new draft podcast called With the First Pick, excuse me. He's down at Alabama talking to these kids, and he said Will Anderson is the most humble kid he's interviewed in 30 years of doing this in the league, and that transcends to what you see on the field with plays like this. So there's no concern about him being a locker room issue. In fact, he's a leader, and once you get him in your building, he's going to be dominant from day one. It's much in the same category as Nick Bosa, the Chase Youngs, the Aiden Hutchinsons in terms of being a general manager, drafting this guy, and knowing you ain't getting fired for taking what it could possibly end up being the best player in that draft class.
Ryan, I'm so glad you said that, because nothing should absolutely change when it comes to Will Anderson. Yes, the production is not as good, but of course, when you do what you did your sophomore year, they're going to send triple teams. They're going to chip you on the outside. The thing about Will Anderson, he's going to be a consummate pro from day one. You hear, Coach Saban talk about him, different coaches talk about him. This guy just does everything right. He can beat you on the edge with his hand uses. He can beat you with speed. He can beat you with power. I really like his length. He does a really good job on run blocks, being able to separate from offensive tackles and then get into the backfield. This guy is going to be a difference maker from day one. You shouldn't even think about it. If you're Seattle and you're number 3 and he's there, turn that card in right away.
Let's go from number 1. We'll skip number 2 and start at number 3 again. Myles Murphy out of Clemson. We know that D-line with Brian Brzee and company, R-Dub. What stands out to you about Double M?
First of all, he's 20 years old, and then you turn on the tape and you're like, he takes your breath away with some of the things that he can do physically, and you say that with the understanding that he's only going to get better. And look, you could have some issues with perhaps his technique at this point, but I harken back to Drake Jackson last year, second-round pick of the 49ers out of USC. I remember watching him and thinking, he's not doing everything I want him to do at that size, 6'3", 270, that you might expect. And I had a scout tell me straight up, listen, when you look like that, 6'3", 270-ish, teams are going to fall in love with you, and they know they can coach you up if you have that athleticism. Drake Jackson's having a great year, and I think Myles Murphy falls into that category. I think Tyree Wilson falls in that category. You can't coach that sort of size, that sort of physicality, that sort of twitchiness off the edge. And as I mentioned, 20 years old, he is only going to get better. Is 4 perhaps too high for him? Maybe. But again, you're projecting 2-3 years down the line when he could be an absolute dominant force, a guy that requires double teams each and every time the ball is snapped.
Yeah, Ryan, I absolutely love Myles Murphy. And a lot of people have kind of scoffed because his production hasn't been where some of these other edge rushers are at. But you talked about it, 6'3", 6'4", 270, 275. This is a big human being, and he is physical at the line of scrimmage, especially at the point of attack. In the run game, he just destroys the run game. Now, I think he's going to get better. I think he's going to actually be a better pro than he was a college player, because some of the technique things you talked about, right, as far as just his pure ability to pass rush, I think he's going to work on some of those things. And you talked about it. He's only 20 years old, so you don't know what his ceiling is going to be. I fell in love with this guy last year. I called a game for UConn, turned that tape on, and I was like, who is this kid? Like, this kid has got it. So he's a guy I'm really excited about to even dive into more film as the season goes on and get ready for the draft. And then also, I'll be out there in Mobile with you at the Senior Bowl. But Myles Murphy is a guy, the ceiling, you don't know what it is, because I think he has the potential to even maybe slide inside and rush at the 3 technique on third down situations.
So again, Myles Murphy, third in Ryan Wilson's edge rusher position rankings and fourth overall. Then you have number 5, B.J. Ojulari. And Ryan, I double, triple checked. I looked at your first round mock. I did not see B.J. Ojulari in there. So where would he fit and why is he ahead of a guy like Nolan Smith? But you have Nolan Smith in your first round mock.
Yeah, so BJ's been a late first round, early second round guy for me, and he reminds me a lot of his brother Aziz. I think he's actually a little better. Aziz, second round pick of the Giants. And Aziz only fell because of a knee injury, and he's having a pretty productive young career in the NFL. But I think BJ plays, and Leger used this term last segment, with his hair on fire every single snap. If he gets locked up with an offensive tackle, he is working hard to disengage as quickly as possible and make plays in the B gap or the C gap, depending on where he's lined up. And you love that enthusiasm. You love that ability. He's quick twitch. You love the ability to get off those blocks quickly and then harass the quarterback. You see that high motor here on this play. So it wouldn't be outrageous to me if he went at the bottom of the first round and certainly at the top of the second. You mentioned Nolan Smith there, Tommy T. Nolan Smith is certainly much smaller weight-wise than BJ. He's a little twitchier in my mind. He doesn't play like he's 235-ish, 240 perhaps. He's had an injury, so we may not see him for a while. He had a pec injury. We'll see where his pre-draft process takes him, but either one of those guys are easy to fall in love with, and I do love the high motor we see play in and play out from Ojulari.
Yeah, Ryan, if you look at Ojulari, to me, he's going to come in day one and be a situational pass rusher, right? In the run game, he struggles at times, right? You talked about that size being about 235. Doesn't need to do a better job of really locking blockers out and setting a vertical edge. But he kind of reminds me of the Perkins kid, I think, from Oklahoma, was either last year or the year before that. Both of these guys are really twitchy guys that can come off the ball, and they're going to give you pass rush from day one. I think his rookie year, you don't want to put too much on his plate. I got him around the second round too, high second round, Ryan, because I think he's going to be a guy from day one that comes in and is going to be a really good situational pass rusher. But I don't know if he can be your based in or outside linebacker from day one, just because I don't trust him as much in the run game as of yet. I think he can get better in that aspect. But as far as being twitchy and coming off the edge and showing great bend, that's what you get from B.J. Ojulari.
All right, so we talked a little bit about Nolan Smith, so we're going to finish our conversation with the 9th-ranked prospect in the edge department, Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame. So, Ryan, once again, I'll start with you. What stands out to you, and do you think as time goes on, we get closer to the draft, that he may drop or move up, depending on what you're hearing and people that you're speaking with?
Based on the folks I've spoken with, he's going to be a day 2 guy. I would be surprised he sneaks into day 1. But here's what you have to remember, and this, this is about all these prospects, and that they're learning on the job because they're all 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. Isaiah Foskey is a former tight end, and he's recently moved to edge rusher, and he looks the part every day of the week. He is strong at the point of attack. He can set the edge. And once he learns a few more pass rush moves, once he learns what he's supposed to do in specific situations, whether it's against the run or getting after the quarterback, he is going to be dangerous. Right now, he's not quite there. And I've had scouts tell me that he's learning on the job, and sometimes the football IQ isn't there as an edge rusher, but that's what happens when you're a converted tight end. But there's a lot to love. The size, the strength, the power, the lower body base, that's all there. Now it's just a matter of cultivating that into an NFL edge rusher. And like I said, that's going to come with reps, that's going to come with time, and he's not going to be a day 1 starter, but he will get after it from day 1, whether that starts on special teams and then in terms of situational pass rush for him, but he won't be as a starter right away.
Yeah, Ryan, this is one of my favorite prospects in this draft. Super productive last year. It wasn't as productive this year. Again, when you're the guy and you have that much production, you're going to get more attention from the offensive line. The thing about him, everything you said was true, right? I would like him to maybe line up in the 3-point stance more. When you watch film on him, right, when he's in that 2-point stand against the run, he seems to get a little bit too high, kind of gets walked off the ball. I mean, the game versus Paris Johnson, Ohio State, right, that's a guy who's going to be playing in the NFL. He really struggled in that game. Now, he did get him one time on the speed to power long arm, but other than that, he kind of got stonewalled. But then you see games like UNLV, and you talked about special teams, right? 2 blunt punts and 2 blunt block punts in that game, and also had a few sacks in that game. And then UNC, he was the best player on the field. ultra dominant, not only in the run game, but they put him in the three-point stance in that game, more in the run game. But then also in the pass game, he beat up on UNC. I like his length. I like how he can play with speed to power. He's working on his chop club. He's going to get a little bit better than that with his hip flip as far as getting around the edge of offensive tackles. But this is a guy I really like. I do see him as a day 2 guy. I don't know he'll sneak up in the day 1 as a first-round pick. But Isaiah Foskey is one of my favorite prospects in this draft so far.
All right, well, our D lineman and our draft analyst dropping the knowledge here. By the way, Ryan, you let me do the hype stuff for you, okay? With the first pick. Roll the full screen. There it is. Ryan Wilson and our guy Rick Spielman, former GM, a long time in the NFL. Scan that QR code. First few episodes have gone by very well for the guys, and make sure you check them out as we get closer to draft time.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.